Alright, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing okay. This episode of Boxing After Dark, we're going to talk about the post-fight reflection between Brandon Figueroa and Mark Magsayo. Apologies for the late arrival on this. I didn't actually get to watch the fight live on Saturday. I had a late night gig. I had to work like a last minute thing. So I didn't watch the fight live, and I caught up with it on Sunday, and then I was like, let me wait for this interview to pop today, which the interview I just watched an hour ago is on the Egg Gate. We'll talk about that, the Conor Benn Piers Morgan interview, and then I'm going to touch on two fights that are coming up. One that I've just made a video about, I'm going to touch on it in small detail. That's the Tony Harrison or Tzsyu Tony Harrison, and then the announcement that Inoue, I hope I got that right, is going to fight Tzsyu Fulton. I mean, amazing fight. So we're going to get into all of that. So let's go. All right. So Brandon Figueroa versus Mark Magsayo. I thought Magsayo was going to get broken down and maybe stopped late, and it didn't really happen that way. And Brandon Figueroa ended up winning a really wide decision. Too wide for my liking. I didn't score the fight. I like to watch the fights and just enjoy it. And you know, I guess I could have watched it back again and scored it, but you know, it was a fairly scrappy affair, to be honest with you. It was definitely a mesh of, or like not a mesh of styles. It was just an awkward blend of styles, which, you know, I think a lot of fight fans thought that would be a really good fight, including me. And it wasn't a bad fight. It had its moments for sure. You know, Magsayo got off to a fairly decent start, and as I would have expected, because he's got that explosive power and dynamic way of fighting. But my goodness, if Magsayo actually had a jab, he could have probably won this fight, because there were so many opportunities that he needed a jab, and I can't for the life of me think how he hasn't developed a jab in the last 2 or 3 years since I've been paying attention to him. It's kind of mind-blowing. He might have the worst jab in boxing, to be honest with you. It's that bad. He barely uses it, and when he does use it, he doesn't know how to use it. I mean, look, when you've got that much power and ability, speed and athleticism, and you don't know really how to set your punches up, you know, he was leading with these really telegraphed right hands, and look, he had his success at times, for sure. Of course he did, because you can get away with it when you have, you know, a gifted athletic side to you. And he was, you know, occasionally flurrying a lot, which was eye-catching to the fans. But when you really look back at some of those flurries, hardly any of them were landing when it was in a bunch of, you know, when he was throwing punches in bunches, excuse me. You know, there was only a few getting through, but he did have some success. I'm not saying he didn't. It was a close fight, I think. I think Steve Farhood had Brandon Figueroa winning, and you'd have to look at the 2 points deducted. Now, the referee gave him plenty warning, okay, and he didn't know how to hold, and he didn't know how to clinch. When I say didn't know how to hold, I mean obviously it's not a legal move, and if you overdo it and you get warned, which the referee did, and they were complaining after the fight in the changing room, Magsayo and his team, that, you know, they never got a warning. That's a complete lie. It was on Showtime, like the announcers talked about it. You could see the referee warned him a couple of times. And he's like, you're gonna, and when he was holding, he wasn't even trying to keep it subtle. He was literally pinning Magsayo's hand and just tying it up. It's like, he's got a lot of work to do, Magsayo, if he wants to beat the top fighters and get anywhere, you know, notable at the top of the division again and become a world champion and maybe beat some good fighters. You know, because he won a world title against, you know, a one-armed Gary Russell Jr., to be honest with you. So, yeah, he didn't know how to hold, he didn't know how to clinch, he didn't have an inside game, he didn't know how to jab. So he's obviously relying on his natural ability, and that's athleticism. That's fine. That's got him to where it's got him. I'm not trying to criticize him too much. It just man, get a good jab. A good jab will take you around the world. Didn't AJ say that? Nonetheless, Figueroa, look, I mentioned his chin would be a factor in this. It probably was, just because he was able to take Magsayo's power. Figueroa was going up in weight too. He was, you know, going up to 126, so he's got one of the better chins in boxing. You know, he got cracked a few times on it, clean, and it looked like it definitely took his he took notice to it once. I think Magsayo landed a pretty nasty overhand right, and it moved Figueroa back, and I think that hurt him a little bit. But outside of that, he took his punches really well. He was doing a lot of work to the body, and you know, Magsayo looked exhausted at one point. You know, he really did, and that's why I was like, he's gonna get really tired because of the style he fights in, these explosive punches, and he's gonna, you know, his power's gonna be taken, and then it's gonna, Figueroa throws a lot of punches and it's non-stop. And you know, there were a couple of moments late where I was like, oh, Magsayo might be done here, but you know, he's a tough kid, he's a warrior, so he fought on and he made it to the bell. I think the right man won. Like I said, the wide scorecards were a bit outrageous, but the right man won. I think if Magsayo, I mean, he probably had to hold, to be honest with you, given the Figueroa was on him. But he, you know, the points, I don't have an issue with the ref taking the points. They were saying the referee was against Magsayo. I mean, look, you're not allowed to hold. So what do you expect the ref to do? He gave you warnings and you kept holding. And then after he took a point away, he kept holding again. So, yeah, not the cleanest of fights. Figueroa now will get to face Rey Vargas for his WBC featherweight championship, because that was the interim title. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting fight. And then Magsayo said he's going to be moving up. He actually missed weight, which was probably another reason why he was maybe as exhausted as he was. He missed weight by like 0.8 pounds and then made it with a few minutes to go. So he's going to be moving up to 130. Be interested to see who he takes on next. Let's hopefully he can get his jab and get him going, because he desperately needs one. All right, moving on to this Egg Gate. I just got finished watching this interview with Conor Benn and Piers Morgan. Now, Piers Morgan, in my opinion, is a deplorable human being. So why on earth you want to do your first interview on his platform? Excuse me, I don't know. You know, there's so many outlets. That interview would have got, you know, exposure, whatever platform you did it on. The interest in this has been one of the highest I can remember for a drug scandal or a failed drug test in an athlete. You could have done it on any platform. There's tons and tons of really big platforms that would have got massive views. So I don't know why you'd want to choose to do it on that one when you're dealing with, you know, just Piers Morgan. But I will say Piers Morgan did press him on some questions that still, when I left that interview, I still was just thinking, like, I just don't believe this guy, you know. Like, and there were some things that you know, that I was watching. I did feel for him, to be honest with you, because he did have tears in his eyes. And it did look like he's gone through hell. So I'm not trying to be too insensitive to it all. But like, Piers Morgan was like, well, why, if you have all this information and the scientists and your labs and stuff like that, and why wouldn't you release it? And his answer was, well, I don't have to fight in the UK. I'll fight somewhere else. So, I mean, like, it's not wrong of me to still point the finger, because you failed 2 drugs tests at the end of the day. And until there's conclusive evidence, which there hasn't been, and he's talking about suing the British Border Control, fine, we want to see that. We want to see that, you know. And if he is innocent, I hope he can prove it, and then, you know, hopefully people will forgive him. I mean, I just left watching that interview thinking, I still need to see this evidence, you know. And on top of that, the WBC did an interview with Mauricio Suleiman, and I can't remember who it was, maybe Fight Hype or somebody. And, you know, they asked him directly about this, and it was quickly shut down. He answered it very briefly. This is what we're going with. This is what's done. We're moving on. No real, like, explanation at all. I guess the fans don't get to deserve any kind of truth at all. It's just this is what's happening. We're moving on. Thanks. Goodbye. So the whole thing's just a big mess. You know, like I said, I did. You know, a part of that interview was watching him, thinking, you know, maybe he's telling the truth. Because let's be honest, like it is a possibility, although a slim one, that he is innocent. There is a possibility that it was contaminated. I don't think it was, but there is a possibility. But given how he's just, you know, refused to basically provide this so-called evidence, and then on top of that, he's going to go and fight outside of the UK. All right, yeah, it just stinks to high heaven. And you know, you're talking about suing the British Border Control. Well, let's see it then. Let's see that. Let's see you go through this. And you know, he was saying some strong stuff in there, but I just left that thinking to myself, deep down, I just fully, and I was willing to listen, and I nearly was like, oh, maybe he's telling the truth. And then when he was just refusing to give that evidence, that was the nail in the coffin for me. Do you know? So let me know what you think. I mean, it's just like, does anybody think he's innocent? I know that he's had a lot of backlash. I know it's a bit unfair. I get that, and you know, but it doesn't look good for him, does it? Anyway, moving on. I've just made a video about this Tszyu Harrison fight. Okay, this is coming in this Saturday. I'm not going to go into it in this video. I'm just going to touch on it briefly, or I'll leave the link. Actually, no, I won't leave the link because I'm going to put this up first, but the video will come right after this one. And it's an interesting fight. I fancy Tszyu Harrison. I think he's got the skills to do it. I think he's got the footwork to do it. I think he's got the IQ. And I think he's tailor-made for Tszyu if he fights the right fight. If he fights mid-range, he might get stopped. Yeah, okay, so moving on to this super fight that just got made. I keep telling you, 2023 is going to be an amazing year. We got another great fight announced. I'm going to make a separate video about this. The monster Inoue I hope I got that right, takes on Stephen Fulton. What an absolutely magnificent fight. This is at 122 pounds. And Inoue's coming up from 118, that's bantamweight, to super bantamweight. Is it? It's super bantamweight, 122, right? So, amazing fight. This fight is in Japan. Great clash of styles. Inoue, great footwork, skilled power puncher, crisp puncher. Very, very, very good fighter. You know, obviously top pound for pound pick. Stephen Fulton the same. These are both complete fighters. Stephen Fulton can take it on the inside, which is probably his best bet, to be honest with you. He can box on the out. He can do it all. They both can. Although I'm not sure if Inoue's inside game is going to stand up to Fulton's inside game. But then is Fulton's, you know, Fulton, is he going to be able to stand up to Inoue's power? That's the question. Is because I've seen Stephen Fulton hurt. I think Lopez hurt him. Did Figueroa hurt him? I think maybe a little bit. He definitely got stunned a couple times, but like he's been hurt by lesser punchers. To be honest with you, he's going to be the bigger man in there. So very interesting fight. There's talks of will he get robbed in Japan. Of course, it's always an option, but you got to take yourself back to the Ryota Murata fight when he fought Rob. Was it Rob Brandt? And then Rob Brandt got the decision in Japan. So they have done it before. But you know, and it's just great to see. It's great to see these fights get made because it puts pressure on the other fighters. Okay, Tank Garcia, Inoue, Fulton, because the other fighters must be in a competitive nature, in a competitive way, thinking to themselves, well, I want to be the best boxer around. You know, boxers like that, the guys at the top level, the girls at the top level, think like this, okay? They have to. So they in order to do that, you're going to have to fight the best to put yourself up there, okay? If you keep fighting these, you know, winnable fights, then the boxing fans are gonna call it out because, you know, we love to see the best fight the best. At the end of the day, you're going to get rewarded for that, whether win, lose, or draw. So let's hope it creates a domino effect Let's hope the next one is Fury Usyk, and then we'll get there. I'm very optimistic. I keep saying it. You know, I think we're gonna get most of these fights. I really do. And we got another one here, the Haney Loma. That's close. Boxing's in a great place. People don't think it is. I think it's in a great place. So that's it from me. Boxing After Dark. I'll get the next one out probably on Sunday next week. Hopefully there's enough news to cover. But let me know any thoughts you have in the comment section below. I'm out of here. Boxing on the Edge. Take care.